Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today as I get the chat going. How are you doing, folks? Welcome aboard. AVQ is numero uno in the house. He is numero uno in the house from Brooklyn, New York. We have Patrick Magner from Houston, Texas. Welcome aboard, Patrick. How you doing today, my brother? We have in the house as well Eric Hayes from King Watascasita. Chris, how you doing in the Substack, as well as Suzanne Cap. Don, how are you guys doing today? We have a great show for you today. We have, I don't know if you guys heard the story. Well, before I get started, let me kind of cue a few things up here that I need to get queued up and a few things that I need to get out of my shots that I need to delete. Anyway, how's everybody doing? I trust everybody's doing fine. I try to get here a little quicker because some people have been telling me that when we have that I start at 3 o'clock, and when we have that kind of long drawn out, people don't know if this program is starting or not, and they kind of run off to, I guess, the next available live that's out there. So I got to get here a bit quicker, which I've been trying to do. Anyhow, we have some good stories for you today. Today, of course, you know, it's the end of the ACA, or rather the subsidies for the ACA. They are closing the signups today. And a lot of people are going to start feeling the pain. And I have the first story that I want to do is going to show that. So let's go ahead and go there first. Well, actually, you know what I better do first? Let's go ahead and get to some of Michael Rudnin's things. It looks kind of interesting. He says Nome at 140. Let's go ahead and do that one first. Let me put that onto the screen. And then we'll move on to what I really, the other stuff that I want to cover. So let's go ahead and do that. Para ver. I think this is the first one here from Rudnin. All right, let's put it up on the screen. Here we go.
Seen a couple of videos about this, but no major news outlets are covering it, so we have to talk about it now. I know I'm not the only one who saw the Y'all Can Pick Me standing behind the podium saying, "One of ours, all of yours," and thought, that's some cryptic shit, it's probably evil. So let's talk about where this comes from and why the context is so important. This quote stands for the concept of collective punishment for those who oppose authoritarian rule. It literally means if you take one of ours, we take all of yours, but it also implies in terms of human value, one of ours is worth more than all of yours. While I've seen videos that link this to alleged slogans from 1940s Germany and 1930s Spain, not been able to validate any historical origin for this exact quote or any kind of linguistic variation. Getting hung up on whether or not it links to some worst part of human history really distracts from the point of why it's so fucked up for it to be on the podium here. Because regardless of the exact slogan, the idea of collective punishment goes back as far as human history is recorded. Collective punishment is really nothing more than an authoritarian framework to flip the idea of justice on its head, to where justice is not about protecting individual liberty, but about delivering systemic oppression. In modern history, collective punishment did peak in World War II, where every member of the Axis to some degree used it as a sledgehammer in their imperial conquests. And because collective punishment was exposed as a grave violation of human rights, it was banned in international law after World War II, not only in conflicts with other countries, but domestically too. This very concept is why blanket warrants are illegal in the United States. You cannot punish a group for the illegal actions of an individual. The reason it's so incredibly fucked up in this specific situation is because, it's one thing for DHS to tell foreign organizations like cartels or terror groups, if you harm one American, we hold your group accountable. But Kristi Noem standing behind that podium as she defends an ICE agent who just killed an American citizen, this is the symbol and message we cannot ignore. Because she is not promoting the collective punishment of cartels or terror groups. She's implying the collective punishment for anyone who opposes ICE in the United States, where one of ours is not Americans but ICE agents, and all of yours is not foreign organizations but American citizens. Citizens who are leveraging their First Amendment rights to speech, to petition, and to assemble. Now, if this is demoralizing and it feels worthless to call it out, it is not, because the clock is ticking for ICE's funding. The brand new poll now shows that 46% of Americans believe ICE should be abolished. That doesn't seem like a lot. That same number was only 27% 6 months ago. It's this kind of public pressure that gives our elected officials the backbone they need to stand up for American values and defund and abolish ICE when the opportunity comes.
You know, that's some of what I was talking about on my show this morning at KPFT 90.1 FM. One of the things that we have to do is remember there's people power. The politicians have I constantly point out are empty vessels to be filled, and it all depends on what we fill it with. And if we fill it with the people, we will get what the people want. The problem is right now we have been allowing two kinds of filling: indoctrinated people as well as the corporate money itself. If there's one part we can't take care of the corporate money because of constitutional amendments that need a whole lot of work to change, but we can take care of educating the people so that they can make educated decisions. I'm glad Michael brought out this stuff about ICE, because the story I have with Jedeed, Laura Jedeed, Laura Jedeed infiltrated ICE. And what I have, the interview that I did with her this morning is going to point out how reckless that is. But let me play the other piece Michael had here, which seems to be ICE related as well. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll continue with we'll continue with Laura's interview afterwards.
And security just saw one of the largest data breaches in the agency's history. And you guessed it, it's said to include the sensitive details of around 4,500 ICE and Border Patrol employees, including almost 2,000 ICE agents working on frontline enforcement. It's being said that the loss of Renee Good may have spurred a whistleblower to leak the information to a grassroots journalist initiative who is set to release the information in sections, starting with information for about 1,800 on-the-ground ICE agents and about 150 supervisors. They also say that exceptions are being made for nurses and child care providers that may be staffed by the agency, which I agree with to an extent. I'm sure people can think of 1,000 reasons why that might be the right or wrong thing to do at a time like this in the comments, as can I. But needless to say, this is huge breaking news and a story I am most definitely keeping my eye on. Shoot me a follow to stay up to date. Department of Homeland Security just saw one of the largest data breaches in the agency's history. And you guessed it, it's said to include the sensitive details of around 4,500 ICE and Border Patrol employees.
All right, let me just say that I would normally, when it comes to having breaches, I would normally be against stuff like this. But exceptions are always made when we have a clear and present danger. And I think it is safe to say, and please tell me what you guys believe. I think it is safe to say that a masked secret police, or rather, a masked police in effect is Trump's secret police. All these masked federal agents that nobody knows who they really are, that there is a data breach on them so that they can be identified. I'm not gonna be the one to do it, but I am not gonna go against anybody who got that done. What are your thoughts? Let me hear in the chat. Let me hear in the chat that these thugs are being exposed, and they expose us, but that these thugs are being exposed. Is it a good thing? Because there's one thing that I've been saying. After we expose those who would become ICE agents, we must ensure that ICE agents have a scarlet letter attached to them. In other words, if you are willing to work for ICE, understand that you will never be employed again by people of moral values. Reduce your employability and your future if you decide that it was a good thing to do for America, for American citizens and immigrants alike. That evil that you're putting on those people's bodies, I don't think you should ever be forgiven for it. And I think, as such, identifying ICE, ICE agents, not to do them bodily harm at all. We don't want to do any kind of harm to these guys, but to ensure and know that if you are an employer, you should never employ these people. And all these folks that are running around here as agents should know that they will not be employed except by, some others. I think it's important. Patrick says if they were following the law, there would have been no need for a breach. Yep. Harry Denson said, yes, Egberto, it is a good thing these thugs are being exposed by American citizens like Laura Jedeed. And let me say, I just interviewed Laura Jedeed. I'm going to play it today. I'm also going to play it tomorrow on KPFT. But check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Laura did a great thing. Check this out. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Look, Laura Jedeed is an independent freelance journalist and founder of Firewall Media. She has written at Politico, Rolling Stone, The Nation, New Republic, Slate, among other substantive publications. She is a veteran, a real veteran, a hero. More importantly, as an investigative reporter, she has broken a very important story that has repercussions we are living through today with ICE. Laura Jedeed, welcome to Politics Done Right. How you doing?
Doing all right. Great to be here.
Look, it's great having you. Let me tell you, I've been excited to speak to you from the time I read that article. It's like, first of all, it's great to know that we've sat on panels together, but it's even greater to see what you have actually done here by coming out to Texas and exposing something that needed to be exposed. I tell you what, tell us a little bit. I want to get into the story, but I need my audience to know who you are.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm an investigative journalist. I've been doing this for a little bit now. I joined the Army right out of high school, out of an excess of patriotism, really believed in the whole global war on terror thing, really thought we were bringing freedom and democracy to people overseas. When I deployed to Afghanistan, it became very obvious very quickly that that's not the case. And it made me wonder what else I'd been lied to about. So over the course of the next several years, I changed my opinion on almost everything that I used to believe. And I do this job in part because I remember what it's like to believe something I no longer do. And a lot of my work has been focused on trying to explain why people believe the things they do. So this is an interesting one for me, the one that I've just written, but we live in very interesting times. So
we sure do. And, I love what you said, that you were able to change your own belief systems after experiencing what I'm going to call it a real reality. And I think by you having that experience, you are so able to communicate to others to do the same, almost giving them a permission structure to do that. And in that light, what I want to do is talk about your ICE experience. Why don't you start from the beginning?
Yeah, so originally the plan was a lot simpler than what ended up happening. I was going to there was an ICE hiring expo in Arlington, Texas, and I thought it would be interesting to see what that was like. So I went ahead and assembled a skills-based resume. As I mentioned, I'm a veteran, so I was able to put together a skills-based resume that looked pretty good on the surface, and traveled out there and was going to hand in that resume. Now, your reader, for the listeners, you should know that I am. My name is pretty unique. I'm very Googleable, and if you were to Google me, you would find out immediately that I have been an outspoken critic of the Trump administration and a very outspoken critic of ICE for many years. I've written articles in The Nation about both of those things, like directly, and then just on social media. So, yeah, I assumed that what would happen is I would hand my resume in, I'd get the initial interview, I would leave, and then I would never hear from them again because they would type my name into a computer or do like any kind of background check and realize that I'm not the recruit they're looking for. So That's what I did. I went in, I handed in my resume. They did about a 6-minute interview that mostly consisted of questions about things like name, date of birth, time
And that
in the
was
military.
face to face.
That was face to face.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Arlington Esports Arena, which is a very interesting building. But
and by the way, beforehand, you flew from New York all the way to Dallas for this mission.
yes, yeah.
Excellent.
So that was a very, very fast trip, but I was glad I went. It was interesting. It was cool to see who was there. I talked to an ICE agent as part of this. It wasn't part of the interview process. That was just a thing that you could do if you wanted to learn more about the job. So I did that. And then I went back home and prepared to write an article about that. And, I kept an eye on my inbox for a couple days because they said you'll either hear same day or like in the next couple days, So I kept an eye out, and then I stopped keeping an eye out because I didn't expect to hear from them. So when they sent an email with a tentative offer on September 3rd, which was several days after the expo, I missed it. I didn't see it. It sank to the bottom of my inbox. What that letter had in it was a tentative offer. It said I had 48 hours to accept and that I would need to submit a whole lot of paperwork to be considered. Paperwork including a background check, information so they could run a background check on me, some medical affidavit stuff, a certification that I'd never been convicted of a domestic violence crime, stuff like that. Important things that you would expect to need. So Sana didn't see it, sent in none of that stuff. And that really should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. A few weeks later, I received an email saying that I was invited to go to LabCorp to take a drug test as the next part of my ICE application.
Let me ask you, because I want to interrupt here, because based on what you wrote, after you received that first email, it was past the 48 hours from which you should have responded. So you never responded and you just let it go.
Yeah, I honestly found it after I completed, when I finally checked the ICE portal, which we're getting to. That's when I went back through my inbox and searched and found it. I hadn't known that it was there. My inbox is a mess. I'll own that completely.
But for the time to accept, that had already passed.
Oh, by about a month, yes.
Okay, continue, please. I just want the audience to see the ineptitude that we're talking about here. And not only ineptitude, but the sleight of hand. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, exactly that. But so as far as I know at this point, all that's happened is that I've been selected to do a drug test, which was unfortunate. Cannabis is legal in New York State. I had partaken about 6 days before they wanted me to take that test. But, you never know what's going to happen. And I figured worst case scenario, I'd waste some of ICE's money. So I went in and I did the drug test and went home and waited. And they have to call you if you fail. So I figured I'd hear from them then. And when I didn't, about 9 days later, I was curious. So finally, I logged in to the ICE portal to see whether this had been processed yet. And what I found, Egberto, was that not only did the drug test not seem to matter, it listed me as having a final offer for a job. It listed me as having accepted the final offer for the job. And it listed my entrance on duty date as September 30th, which was 3 days before I was checking this ICE portal. And if you're wondering about the background check, it was apparently completed on October 6th. So that would be 3 days in the future when I'm looking at this, but it was listed as completed. So
wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. In other words, you checked late again. You have already accepted an offer you didn't. And the background check that was supposed to be made, that is already checked, was actually done in the future.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
Well, at that point, I went back through and I looked at my emails and I kind of pieced this together, and it took a little while to just, it's because when you see something that you don't expect to see like that, sometimes it can take a little while to really understand what you're looking at. And it did take me a little while for that. I got to work, I called my editor at Slate. I said, hey, we need to change of plans. I reworked the article. It kind of got a little bit stuck in editing hell for a little while. And, but it came out at, I think, a very good time. And that's where we are today.
I think it came out at an excellent time, because when you see an ICE performing so badly and you wonder where these people who are doing this work are from. Your experience tell a big story. I tell you what, why don't you tell me what you think your story tells about the ICE recruitment process?
Yeah, so look, it's very funny that they hired a person with a listing on antifawatch.com. That's hilarious. But what's less funny is the implications, because it's very unlikely, I think, that my application is the only one that this happened to. And so you have to ask, we have these people in masks with guns running around on the street, brutalizing, disappearing, murdering people. And not only do we not know who they are, I think it's very possible that ICE doesn't know who they are. And so I am very curious to know how many people with domestic violence convictions are out there on the street with a gun right now. These people oversee detentions. How many people convicted of sex crimes are in charge of a detention facility? These people, they won't be believed and they won't be missed. So the more you think about it, the worse it gets.
There's something in your article that I think was striking as well. When you flew to Dallas from New York, you said that this place that was expecting all these people was rather big, and you found it interestingly empty. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think I think we can infer another story from that, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah. So there was a 2-day expo, and we were all required on Eventbrite, because they're very professional, to select a time slot, so that I assume we didn't overrun them with the numbers of patriots just, storming the building, trying to get on that $50K bonus. But when I got there, that's not at all what I found. There was no line for security. There was no line to give the ticket over. There was a 6-person line to get the interview, maybe 150 people sitting in this giant arena at any given time. It was really everything. It just was very empty. I think even in this economy with $50,000 on the line, people just don't want to sign up to be in America's Gestapo.
Now, would you have gotten the $50,000 up front as soon as you got onboarded?
I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure. My understanding, though, from reading is that it takes a few years. You have to be in for a while, and then they give you the bonus, which makes sense.
Right,
yeah.
Because they don't want to give you $50,000 and then you run off, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think it shows is that, I always say Americans are good people in the aggregate, and that, you have to find the scourge of the earth that you see attacking people right now your recruitment process, Laura, pretty much says a whole lot about how that they're so desperate to get people in that they don't do the necessary guidelines to follow.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. They have said themselves they've had a 120% increase in personnel, from 10,000 officers to 22,000 officers. And, for any organization, that would be a stretch. When you have more people who are new than people who have been there for a while, that's going to change any culture. And it seems to me that if you're replacing them with anyone with a pulse, that implies to me that the culture is going to change very much for the worse, which it was already pretty bad. So
now let me ask you a couple questions before we end here. Now, the fact that they answered a whole lot of things that you didn't. In other words, they said you accepted the job. They said that you completed all these things. Isn't there some action that can be taken towards that? I don't know quite what, but in effect, it is saying that you are doing things you didn't. And if somebody looked through the path, they'll say, oh, well, she accepted a job from ICE. Somewhere in the future, like right now, what I've been telling folks, right? For me, having accepted a job with ICE, I would never hire you. And you haven't accepted a job for ICE. To me, it endangers your future career.
Well, I think at this point, I didn't expect this story to get as big as it did. I hoped it would get big. I didn't expect it to be what it has become. But I think it's, people will be able to look back and see why I did it. And also, for the record, when they had the EOD date, they had everything. I did still need to accept the offer, though. Mm-hmm. And I was tempted. I was tempted to go and do the training, or at least see if I could, see how far I could get before somebody noticed. But it occurred to me that if they figured out who I was while I was on a facility, things could go very poorly for me.
You could endanger yourself. And this is not the cleanest administration. They have a tendency to disappear people at times.
That was
Yeah.
kind of my thought. Like maybe I shouldn't, go into the place where people are disappearing other people and just hope that nobody like casually looks up my extremely look upable name. So yeah.
And Laura, they would, because I don't know how long you could hold your tongue when you're out there and hearing people say certain. I don't think you could do that for too long of
Yeah.
a time. But anyhow, in closing, what would you like to tell me?
Um, Look, I really hope that if anything, this story can bring light to just how messed up what we're going through right now is. I think there's a desperation to normalize what's happening, especially in a lot of the media. And it's part of it is fear, but I think of the administration itself, but I think part of it is a reluctance to really look at where we are, because where we are is so profoundly horrifying. But we really are here. This is really happening. The people who got hired by the same process I went through are currently in Minneapolis doing things like throwing flashbangs into trucks and sending children to the hospital, shooting a man in the leg as he flees into his home. I mean, every day brings some new atrocity. And I've got to say, Tim Walz his answer appears to be document it and then vote in November. Nothing indicates these people are going to listen to anything that happens in November. And it is past time that I think governors mobilize the National Guard to protect the citizens who elected them to protect the citizens. This has gone too far. And just kind of quietly knuckling under in hopes that Trump won't do anything worse. This is how you end up with authoritarianism, and that's the path we're on.
I mean, I think I couldn't end with a better note. It's time for the governors to do their job and protect their people. Now, Laura, your name is all over the place with all kinds of headlines. I want to just tell you one thing. Keep writing, and also make sure and take good care of yourself, my friend.
Hey, will do. And thank you so much.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to speak to her as soon as possible, so we got that set up today. Now, somebody said she's lied. You know what's a good thing about what Laura did? She took a video as she was going through the website that says she was an ICE employee. So, she made sure and did her homework, because she understood that the liars on the right would try to lie about her truth. So she made sure and had the backstops for it. It was so profound, even the DHS responded. The DHS initially said she was lying. So after the DHS said she was lying, she went ahead and released the video. And I think she put it on Twitter or Blue Sky, or maybe both. I'm not sure if she did it to both or not. But it turns out that, well, it's so easy. I think her name is the only Laura Jedeed maybe in the country, or very few, if any. So it would not have been hard for DHS to pick it up. But it is clear what they're doing is that they are having a hard time recruiting people. Like I tell people all of the time. I tell people this all of the times. Most people are good. Don't let the evil ones that you see, even some of them, let's say in our chat or whatever, and think that they are representative of America. Representation of America is a lot better than what you see. The evil ones are louder, and they're more prevalent in their wordiology. But most people are good. Remember that most people are good. Even some of your MAGA folks that you think are so bad, they're just, again, mentally, but most people are good. So when Laura went to that ICE recruitment center, and she saw the place, she says, was big. And the reason they made it big is because they thought having a $50,000 bonus would have gotten a lot of people, there. And they didn't. So evidently, Americans are seeing the disdain with which the ICE agents are looked at, the ill repute. They're seeing that, and Americans are saying, "I don't want to be one of those." And remember what I said: it is imperative that as we identify ICE agents or former ICE agents, that we place a scarlet letter on them to ensure that they are unemployable by any employer of substance. So people know going in, if you choose to be an ICE agent, a scarlet letter will apply to you. And we will ensure by all means necessary that you won't be employable at any place where you're going to interact with folks, because you have already proven who you are having worked for ICE. It's important. It is very, very, very important that that is applied to these people. And likewise, LBW nailed it. Prosecution is highly likely. And that's why we need to identify these people, so that those people who they smashed, American citizens whose faces were smashed on the ground by these thugs, later on when we get a sensible moral administration, we will get a chance to prosecute them. But again, prosecution and ensuring that they never work again. It is so important that we put that out now. All right. As you all know, today is the closing of the exchanges. A lot of people found out today that ultimately they will not have insurance. They will not have insurance because some people waited and delayed, just thinking just maybe those Republicans will pass something to help them out. Well, guess what? They didn't. And I want you to see what people are going through right now, brothers and sisters. Republicans have left a lot of their own hurting without insurance. And this is what the results gonna look like.
Last day to sign up for health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And we're already seeing the drastic impacts from Congress's failure to extend the ACA subsidies. A steep drop in enrollment. Federal data shows a difference of about 1.5 million Americans compared to last year as they confront significantly higher premiums. The change is causing people like this single mother with 3 kids to make tough choices.
I had heard a lot of people saying, oh, it's going to double or triple premiums. No, mine increased 7 times over. It's not just crushing my dream. It has crushed my daughter's dreams. It's crushing so many other families' dreams. Their small businesses are being squeezed by this. And I don't want other people to feel this pain that my family is carrying right now.
Ariel, you spoke to that single mother in Georgia. What more did she tell you?
Well, Chris, she tells me that she is devastated by those high costs, and she's just one of millions of Americans across the country that are dealing with those skyrocketing premiums, which is causing so many people to just not have health care at all. And, there are about 8 states across the country. You can see them right there. They're expecting to see those enrollment levels drop by more than a half. Teresa Acosta is from Georgia. I went to Georgia last week and spoke with her one-on-one. And she tells me that she has 3 kids, one with type 1 diabetes, another who was in college, but actually had to take a break so that they could afford those mounting healthcare costs. Take a listen.
A little over a year ago, I had so much hope for my kids. And today it feels overwhelmingly crushing. I'm afraid for my youngest access to the medication that he needs to live. A type 1 diabetic can't live without insulin. And I'm afraid that if something happened to me, that he would not be able to manage, a system that doesn't value his life.
heartbreaking reality for so many Americans. Teresa also says she's very much concerned about the future for her children and concerned about their concept of the American dream. She expects to let her voice be heard during midterms this year.
So, Audrey, enrollment numbers obviously don't tell the whole story, as we just heard from that mom in Georgia. This has a ripple effect on family members. It has a ripple effect on local businesses. So as someone who runs the ACA marketplace in Massachusetts, are you hearing similar stories?
We're hearing exactly similar stories, and it is so concerning and alarming to hear Americans having to make choices like these. We are hearing from folks who simply cannot make the math work with these premium increases that they are seeing now. They are having to make trade-offs between rent, groceries, and their access to life-saving healthcare that's been a lifeline for them. So the stories are truly heartbreaking, and we're doing everything we can here in Massachusetts to support these folks. And Massachusetts, in many ways, is one of the best off states because of the leadership of our governor and other investments we've made. But yet we are still seeing increases in folks terminating their coverage and rolling the dice, hoping that they don't get sick this year.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're in touch with a lot of folks who are in your business in other states. Millions more people are expected to drop their health insurance because of these high prices. What effect will that have on our hospitals and on our healthcare systems in general?
This will affect individuals and their families, their healthcare, their financial security, but you're exactly right. It will ripple out through our entire healthcare system. When people make the decision to drop coverage because they simply can't afford it anymore, it's not as though they stop getting sick. It's not as though they stop getting injured or having accidents. These folks will still show up at our hospitals, at our community health centers, but they will show up sicker. And our entire system will bear an increased cost for the fact that we'll be needing to treat them in a sicker condition. We will all pay the price, and we will be a sicker and poorer country for it if this is not addressed by Congress.
If this is not addressed by Congress, we will be sicker. Let me go into this a little bit further. I just put a map on the screen, and maybe I need to enlarge it a little bit more. Cover. Let me just have it cover the entire thing here. That is what. Look at those states that are in red. Those are the states that will be affected the most by the subsidies being lost. Republicans are hurting their own people with their policies, but their right-wing media sources are fooling them into believing that somehow that is not the case. I want people to understand this, man, and this is so very important. I want people to understand this. Republicans, again, don't have a choice in that whenever they get rid of programs, whenever they slow down programs, whenever they give less, by definition, the people they harm the most are their own. And the reason why is, tell this to people, my friends, their states are the poorest states. Their states are the sickest states. Their states are the least educated states. Their states are the states that collect the least amount of taxes to support the well-being of their people, as they relegate all of that to the corporations, the wealthy in their states, and to those politicians themselves. Again, so anytime you see they cut Social Security, or rather, they cut food stamps, they cut Medicaid, the states that will always be harmed the most are Republican states or red states, because once again, they're the least educated, they are the sicker ones, they're the ones more dependent on the federal government than any other states. And they don't realize that because their sources of information do not tell them the truth. They are failures. They are failures and they don't even know it. And that is what we are here for, my friends. We have to let this reality be known because so many of them don't realize how bad it really is. So many of them think, oh, things are just okay. No, Republicans are screwing their own. And this, what they're going to do is, with what they're doing with healthcare right now, is going to make Republican states, remember, they are already sicker states. They're going to be even sicker. Their lifespans less, it's going to be even less. It's just one of those things that they don't know. And we have it's what LBW is saying here is such. We love our farmers, okay? Unfortunately, our farmers don't always make the right decisions, or frequently don't make the right decisions. And this time around, voting for Donald Trump for many of our farmers is going to be catastrophic to them. I repeat, to many of our farmers, their vote will be catastrophic. And LBW said it best. She says, farmers got a triple whammy: losses due to tariffs, losses due to agricultural workers, and losses due to the ACA subsidies being stripped away. Very sad. And I want to elaborate on what LBW said because it is so very important. Losses on tariffs. How did that affect them? Well, with the tariffs that we placed on China, or rather that we placed on China, which means for every soybean, we could no longer sell soybeans to China at an effective rate, right? Because again, China penalized the farmers for all that tariff that the United States is going to charge on other products, so they made the farmers pay for it. And what did China do? China went ahead and started buying and signed long-term contracts with Argentina. So Argentina was happy to supply the soybeans to China. We are left holding the bag with having an oversupply of soybeans, which means a lot of soybean is going to be just tilled right back into the land, ferment, spoil. Tons upon thousands of tons of soybean will go to waste. Number two, when she says they lost their workers, yeah, you know how ICE is running around, running in fields and picking off workers, the only workers that want to do that kind of work. That means that these farmers' lands, a lot of their peaches in Georgia, a lot of their avocado in Mexico, in California, a lot of that will go unpicked, thrown away, lost, wasted, spoiled in the field. So the farmers, again, will lose money because they cannot bring their products to market. But guess what, my brothers and sisters? You notice there's no shortage of those products in the grocery store. You know why? Because whatever avocado they can't get from the groves in California, they'll import it from Mexico and just increase the price of the avocado because the capitalist is going to still make his money. The capitalist is going to still make that money, and all of us are going to pay for it. And the farmers are the ones who are going to suffer the most, followed by us, of course, who will be paying more for the stuff. I mean, it's all around a crazy, stupid policy. And then, of course, as LBW states, the subsidies goes away. Obamacare was created, the ACA was created, the Affordable Care Act was created because single insurance companies would either rip people off by giving them cheap insurance that had no value. In other words, you thought you had insurance, but you really didn't. So Obamacare put restrictions on what could be sold. If you have insurance, you have insurance. You don't have crap. you have insurance that followed the rules to make sure that your money wasn't stolen. But then again, because he understood that insurance on the private market was expensive, and given that the neoliberals did want to get rid of the private healthcare system, they wanted to keep a private healthcare system. They subsidized whatever it was the private health insurance would cost you. So if the health insurance costs you $10,000 a month, and you're living 400% above poverty level, they will say, okay, we'll subsidize that for you to pay for the private insurance, since they don't want that the best insurance, which is Medicare for all. But the farmers, in supporting Donald Trump and getting whose party got rid of the subsidies, they said, to hell with the subsidies. And guess what happened to all of them now? Because the farmers had to buy private insurance. They're not a part of a company. They had to buy private individual insurance. They're not a part of a company. Now they are not subsidized, and instead they bear the full cost. You saw the video that I showed before where the woman said her premium went up 7 times, 700%. That's what they voted for. That is what they voted for. And again, it's not their fault to some extent. It is their fault, but, remember what I talk about mental illness and using prejudice to easily convince you to vote against your own interests? They fell into that trap. They completely fell into that trap. LBW says it's easy to make fun of them because of these choices, but as Jasmine Crockett said, we're all on this thinking ship together. As a humanist, which I am as well, I never want to see others suffering. Hopefully, they can see the error of their ways. Yep, they need to. And if they do, good things will happen. It'll take a time to recover from this disaster. Don says, unbeknownst to most Americans, we contribute at least $1.69 billion annually into our Medicare Medicaid system via the Medicare tax and a portion of the FICA tax for every single one of our paychecks. Look at your pay. Oh, yeah. It's actually about 3%. The Medicare tax is about 3% of your salary. And while the Social Security tax, I think it's like 14% or 12%. Each of us pay half. The employer pay half, we pay the other half. So that is where we're at. So anyhow, these are important things for us to know. So folks, don't just listen to this and throw our hands up in the air and call these farmers dumb, which they're not. We can actually do something about it. And what can we do about it? Engage. A lot of people are not going to want to hear what you have to say, but we don't need all of them to listen to you. We don't need all of them to be on your side. We just need people to convince the few to see the light. That's all we need. A few, right? A few. All right. I have one more thing. One more video. And I was so happy to hear Gallego say this. A lot of our politicians are so scared to speak truth. I want to have you listen to how he addresses what Donald Trump is doing with Greenland. I think he couldn't have said it any better. What's your thought on this? Check this out.
Senator, let's turn to the president's threats to take Greenland. Denmark's foreign minister says there are fundamental differences with the administration. After their meeting yesterday, you also met with him after that White House meeting. Is there a way to address the president's security concerns without handing over Greenland that both sides might support?
No, because this is nothing to do with actual security concerns. This is the president being an idiot. And he is really excited about the idea of taking this big piece of land that's on a map. And he's just using any excuse to actually cover up his idiotic idea. And then you have people like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. They're coming up with all these weird excuses. We have access to Greenland. We have a base in Greenland. The Kingdom of Denmark has said you could expand all the bases you want. They have agreed to work with us on economic issues. They've agreed to any type of economic treaty that to secure mineral rights, whatever it is. They'll do anything because they certainly don't want to work. But this is just a fit of fancy this president is having, and then all his court jesters around him are coming up with an excuse because the real reason is really dumb. It's just the president is an idiot, and we're all trying to come up with excuses. But the fact is, at the core base, this president is an idiot, and now he's putting that foreign policy into effect, which is going to negatively affect us in the long run in terms of our national security.
Well, the president took a look at Greenland, and because of the Mercator projection, it looks a lot bigger than it really is. How big is Greenland? Greenland is about 3 times the size of Texas. But if you look at it on the Mercator projection, it actually looks a lot bigger. It actually looks a lot bigger than it really is. And we have a president that doesn't know how to read, or doesn't have any critical thinking skills, and doesn't have any way of analyzing, no analytical skills whatsoever. This is a guy who believes that we could save 300% on drugs. I mean, think about this. You're the president of the United States, and you go out there and say that you can actually drop the price of drugs by 300%. That's the kind of president that we have. That's the kind of president that we have. One that believes we can shrink drug prices by 300%, not realizing that if drug prices fall by 300%, the drug company would have to pay you 3 times the price of the drug for you to take the drug. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And we have right-wingers in the chat who actually supports this clown. Thank you for that, Michael Rudnin. Rudnin out the actual size of Greenland, an interesting thing. Let me go ahead and put that on the screen. As you see, Greenland can fit 3 times. Actually, with the Mercator projection, I believe, without the projection, in real size, I think Greenland is about a third the size of the United States. And look at how much bigger it is when you look at Africa compared to Greenland. So, I mean, you have to be very careful with how you look at things. And that is South America. And again, North America is quite a bit larger than South America. So Greenland, I think, is about, I want to say a third or so of the United States. Let me look that. I think, let's see, Greenland is 836,000 square miles, while the United States is about 3.8 million. So yeah, the United States is 4.5. The United States is 4.5 times the size of Greenland. So Donald Trump's projection, unfortunately, I don't know if somebody can tell him the truth, because when you talk to him, remember, he has the ability to move. He has the ability to move to move hurricanes, right? Our president has the ability to move hurricanes and do all of that. Anyway, we're coming close to the end of the program. So I hope you enjoyed Laura Jedeed. I'm going to be playing it tomorrow morning as well at KPFT. What she showed is how irresponsible our ICE folks are. And, I was talking to her offline, and I'm like, it's a good thing you didn't push the accept, because they would have made your life very difficult if you had done that. Michael said the Sahara Desert is larger than the United States. It's amazing, isn't it? But when you look at the Mercator projection, as you go further north, the size of the continents are distorted. As you're closer to the equator, things are more normal in size. But as you go towards the north or towards the south, things become bigger than they really are. And that is just because you're trying to take a curved surface, a completely circular surface, and put it on a flat piece of paper. And when you do that, it creates a huge, huge, huge distortion. All right. Anybody wants to give me a quick call? 281 Again, that number is 281-823-7747. Again, una vez más lo voy a repetir. 281-823-7747, 281-823-7747. Anybody wants to give me a call? I'll probably stay a minute extra if I get a call. But anyhow, folks, thank you for being here. We cannot do this or could never possibly do this without your support. So I want to thank you in advance for your support. I'd like to ask you to please consider becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter, Egberto Off the Record. We do a whole lot. We write a whole lot of blogs, etc. Please be sure to consider becoming a paid subscriber. Just click that subscribe button and you've got it. Hit the subscribe button and you've got it. Also, if you don't have that subscribe button, go to politicsandright.com/newsletter. I'm putting it in both chats right now. politicsandright.com/newsletter. And of course, we have Patrick Magner on the line. My dear brother Patrick, what's up?
Oh, not much. Hope you're having a good day. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts on something was. China holds a lot of our debt. I think that quite a few NATO countries do too, don't they?
Yeah, a lot of NATO countries hold our debt. China hold. Look, we are playing from a position of weakness right now. We are the only thing that is holding us up is that we have has been called a sovereign currency, right? That people needed the sovereign currency, so we could do whatever we have. There's a African young woman who gave a TED talk that asked, "How comes you can print dollars without a problem and we can't?" And really without the backing on anything. Let me tell you, Patrick, what's going on right now. China, while Donald Trump is out there doing a whole lot of talking, China has been very quiet and working behind the scenes. BRICS is a reality. SWIFT, you know what SWIFT is, right? SWFT, the monetary exchange that's needed internationally. All of that is being duplicated in more ways than one, not only via BRICS, but through other mechanisms as well. We are going to be just a military force pretty soon. A military force that doesn't have the backing of the dollar as it stands today. And I don't know how soon that is coming, but China is very quiet as it's doing it. You notice quiet China is making us think about Venezuela, but not so much. It's making us think about everywhere, but not so much. Because they're doing the smart thing, Patrick. They're working behind the scenes. They have a lot of friends around the world, and we are standing alone as we have the bully in chief acting like a clown. Anyway, continue, my brother.
Well, I was going to ask strategically, and I think that Iran has a lot of stock in our market. Strategically, they could sell off or dump all of that, and then the dollar wouldn't be able to run the military, let alone would we be able to buy bread or gasoline as citizens.
Well, the problem there is that mutual assured destruction, right? In other words, if you destabilize the dollar right offhand, if it were only a bilateral thing, I mean, I don't think there would be a problem doing it, right? But the ultimate repercussions of that is sort of unknown. And if there's one thing with China, is that they're very deliberate and meticulous in the way they do things. Because I don't know, I'm not smart enough to understand what the implications would be if the dollar suddenly lost its clout. I, you know, because it is so prevalent around the world, right? I don't know what the social economic implementation. I mean, what would actually happen around the world. Let me give a good example. Panama uses the dollar as its base currency. The one balboa is exactly equal to a dollar, and there are many other currencies that do that. What happens in all those other countries, and the investment that China has in those countries as well. So um, I think I don't know. That has to be the answer that I give, brother.
It sounds like a economic nuclear option, and
Yes, it is.
I'm starting to think it might be possible.
No, I think. Look, I think it's possible.
So
What the ramifications are, I don't know. And the reason. Let me give another example. China had the largest export surplus they've had in their history last year. Okay, the world is buying China like crazy, but with a disruption in the dollar, what that does that do to the 1 point something billion Chinese, 1 point something billion Indians? I don't know. So that's my answer. Anyway, anything else, sir? I gotta go.
No, that's it.
Thank
you
you
very much, and thank you for staying over.
Thank you, my brother. All right, folks, we got to get out of here. Love you all. The way to get to me, info@politicsdoneright.com, info@politicsdoneright.com. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.